Hey folks, this is Brian. Been trying to go through my video list and the notes I've taken for Elderath and the recordings that I've made, trying to keep track of, because I lost track of everything. Apparently, Thanksgiving in Utah threw everything out of whack for me, my channel. But it looks like Elderath chapter 67 occurred while I was actually in Idaho, visiting my sisters after Thanksgiving. And um, I was able to play from there. And then session 68 occurred last week. So I've kind of combined them together because I was getting totally confused. And anybody who's been watching my channel saw that 65 or section 66 got listed twice. Once a 66, once a 65. I'm not sure how I got all that confused, but I did. Nevertheless, maybe I should move this over here so I'm looking at the camera. It's a little better. Okay, so we spent the night in the underground farmhouse. When Runt was on watch, this smoky, ghost-like apparitions of war around him occurred, and an orcish-like body was killed like right in front of him. And I think he talked to a couple of folks. I don't have that actually written down here. Talked to somebody, if I remember right. But anyway, he comes down and gets us. We all come out, and there's nothing left here, right? So we think, well, shoot, let's go ahead and dig, and see if we can't, find this body. But Wes is thinking this would have happened at the time or before the farmhouse. We know how deep the farmhouse is down. What use is this going to be? But we dig anyway. And sure enough, just underneath the top, underneath the sod, right, they find this body. And it's orcish, but not like anything we've ever seen before. It's got scarring and tattoos. It does have a pouch with some mushrooms in it, some of which have been nibbled on. It's got an iron dagger, but it's different. It might be as good as steel, but it's very crude to design. It's got some kind of coating, and we do in fact find a bottle of a foul-smelling liquid on the body. So we do dig around looking for the sword, and we find it. It is of the similar construction of the dagger. Very nasty looking construction, right? So we talk about, should we dig for more artifacts? And we do. We start, and we find excavation materials and evidence of digging having occurred here. But then we realize, hey, this is not why we're here. Something we need to keep track of because we do eventually want to start digging for artifacts ourselves. But we continue on and head up to the caves. There's no sign of any expedition. We go in through, I think it was K, it might be J, and get down to the temple that was barred shut. We go to the altar, go down through the room to the other altar, and Raymond this time charges the leaf, and the staff guides him to the stem to put the leaf on. So he opens up the gate, Wes goes in first, and once everyone is through, we find ourselves holding our breath because we are completely submerged in water. Now we do notice that there is a glow around Raymond. It's like about 15 feet or something. And we all proceed to deal with the drowning mechanic. In the process of doing that, Wes moves towards Raymond because he wants to get inside that glowing light kind of thing. But he isn't missing his rolls, so he's going to technically drown, but he finds that he can actually breathe the water, although it is kind of briny and salty. He lets everybody know, hey, we can breathe this stuff. Okay, so we are in a small shrine area, and we move around to an upper altar area, similar to the other construction we've been through, but there's no top to this altar area, just sides. We are in an underground temple area. It appears to be devoted to math. Raymond approaches the altar and orients himself and heads towards what he thinks should be the entry room to the inner sanctum. There would normally be doors here, but they're long gone. There is an altar up ahead, but it's been all overgrown with various types of sea vegetation. And there are statues about. One's obviously Sylvanus, and another one is obviously Lorath. It's usually depicted as the wife of Sylvanus, but here they're presented as equals. However, both of these statues have been desecrated. Um, and there are alcoves all around this area. And coming out of these alcoves around this inner sanctum are these scaly fishmen-like things with spears and nets, and they're coming towards us. Raymond steps back. West goes ahead and casts sleep. I think it was 7 because there were 6 of them. It does affect 2 of the fishermen. The rest of the fishmen swim up and over the wall, so we can't see them anymore. At that point, we all move back to the inner sanctum, and as the glow that's around Raymond reaches the altar, it transforms. All the vegetation starts to fall away. The statue of Lorath actually animates, becoming an avatar of some kind. Her eyes glow red, and a vortex begins to swirl above her. She stands up and begins pointing to dark shadows in the water um, that turn out to be, large sea creatures. And these creatures start to chase after the various man-like shapes that we see attempting to run away. It does take quite some time, as this area is inundated with these fishmen. There is an area centered on the altar that becomes a bubble of air. So we spit up all the water we had been breathing and begin breathing this air inside this bubble. The avatar of Lorath then flies through the water, chasing down something, stuff, people, fish guys, whatever. Eventually she returns. She's now 9 feet tall. We and her proper obeisance, and she speaks to Raymond, says, "You are not of Lorath." He says, "No, but the forces of good must unite against the forces of darkness." She then takes the staff, which grows proportionally to her now 9 foot tall size, and she says, "I am bidden to welcome you to this holy place of Lorath. We are thankful. There is war coming, or rather, it has never ended." And we agree. And she says, "I am directed to provide what knowledge or weapons is needed to fight that which awakens. We are honored by Lorath's gift." She then steps back to where the statue had been, um, and grows to the size of the statue and becomes more stone-like with the staff. Raymond says, "My lady, we understand that our ability to breathe here is dependent upon the staff. How are we to return without the staff?" There's no response. So we start to search the area for the weapons, as we were directed, and the bubble goes well beyond the walls. Looking back the way we came, it looks dryish. The altar does not move, so we go back to the temple proper, and there are exits there where, okay, so then we exit the temple proper to an entry or a porch area. There's a wide area open into a courtyard. There's broad stairs leading down to a rectangular area. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. 100 feet across. Out in the middle is an altar with a broken statue, and beyond that, directly across is an opening, probably a doorway. There are 2 openings to either side of the altar. There are colonnades to the left and right to other large areas. We can see over the walls from this height that we are at now, the inner court. It's covered by this air bubble dome. But beyond that is a vast city covered in water. Okay, the ground is flat, but there's no dying fish or anything here. We head to the right across from the altar. There's a central chamber with 6 adjacent chambers, 3 on the left, 3 on the right, and another chamber directly across. There's no door, and it's full of water. The chamber directly across from us has no door, and it is full of water. There we go. Okay. The chambers here are barracks and bedrooms of sort with locked chests, etc. There are 2 suits of Lorathian leather armor with short swords with matching daggers. They're all marked with this kind of mantis motif. Total of 6 of them. There's several bows, similar mantis markings opening across them. Almost the same. The opening that's across where we are is almost the same, except there are shelves lining the walls. There are numerous tables of all different sorts of script. Shelves hold tablets, row upon row of tablets. The first room is a study. There's a chest with a robe and 3 spell books, a magnifying glass, and miscellaneous stuff. The next door is a similar setup. This room has a style that's reminiscent of what we saw in the Lizard Man ruins. There's clothing and personal items, for a Lizard Man, plus books. Room 3 has remnants of tree motifs on the walls, and these trees were unlike any tree we've ever seen. They give the impression of being very tall. The furniture has a tree motif. More books. It is Elvish because Raymond can read Elvish. There's a scroll tube and some other evening wear. Across from room 3 is a stonework and cave-like tablets. We think they might be dwarven. The last 2 are similar with books in Latin and a dagger folded in twisted metal. It's magical of some sort. And area 1 is same as the other 2 with a central area and 3 doors along each side of various motifs, Herculean stuff being on the motifs, strength training equipment. There are doors. There are 10 books of various languages of weapon skills, fencing specifically, shield technique specifically, and one-handed sword. There's evening wear and some wooden training weapons. Okay, south of us is a large 700 by 100 by 70 foot area. Appears to be for magical things. There are glyphs and sigils of protection all around. Opposite area, similar to the north, but we can't make heads or tails of those, pretty much in ruins. We consolidate our finds. We go back to the little altar. We repower the leaf, and Raymond hears the avatar ask where we would like to go. It says back to the caves of chaos. His hand moves to the appropriate stem, and we hear that we are welcome here anytime. So we go back to Karsh, but along the way, there's an encounter on the road. That was actually session 67. We stopped because of the encounter. The encounter was, in fact, giant spiders. Don't remember how many there were now. Probably 6. And I cast Sleep 7 on them, and they all failed their saving throws, so they all went to sleep. That was on the second round. The first round, he fired that lightning bolt trying to get it up, but it turns out that when he... Because we don't roll previous, because you don't really know if you're successful in casting a spell or not. So we roll for the casting at the time we actually use it, and it was a failure. So Wes loaded a dud spell into his rapier staff, but then he cast asleep, and then we killed them all. We head back. We arrive at the villa. We go into Karsh to get a cart, and we stop by the temple. Krim is off on temple business. Oh, darn. And Wes is advocating for the magic tomes to go to the Mages Guild. The High Priestess asks if we think that these trinkets are what the Avatar meant. She looks through this stuff and asks about the tablets. Where were these found? She suspects the resources that were referenced by the Avatar were not these mundane objects, but knowledge in the library of the temple underwater. And the church itself wants to keep knowledge of the underwater temple and its contents a secret until the church is able to defend itself against these other political forces in town. She does compensate us for items and allows us access and use of those items that we are interested in. High Priestess then holds a private talk with Raymond while the rest of us go to the Golden Lion. The temple is grateful for our efforts and suggests establishing a fund to aid in supporting the villa. The church is going to send a steward to establish what the villa's needs are and how the temple may be able to assist. Aside from that, it is within her power to raise Raymond to a full priest. While she doesn't have a position available, she can assign him the post of priest at large. Raymond meets up with us at the Golden Lion and heads back to the villa. We all head back to the villa and figure out what are we going to do next. The next day, a steward comes and discusses the villa issues with us. The dwarf returns that day as well, and we find that the children all have these new toys. Um, the dwarf gets the smelter up and running. He casts his anvil and he starts building tools. The steward goes back to the church so that he can include the smithy in the funding for the villa. We then decide we're going to do winter downtime. We're treating it as end of season phase for RQG, so you get 4 skill checks, plus you can do training and research. Of the spell books, there are 2 channeling and 2 essence. The channeling has the base cleric's list of summons, up to 10th level, but only to 30%. And it has the open channeling spell defense list, up to level 7 at 40%. Now, the 2 essence books are both base magician spells. One's Fire Law, the other's Earth Law. Fire Law goes to 6th level at 35%, and Earth Law goes to 10th level, but only 25%. Within the training books are 2 that deal with statistics, appearance with 40%, and constitution with 18%. The dwarf has made small figurines of dwarf and goblin armies, and he has the children playing war games with him. We go through the new year. Excuse me. And we go to the church to tell them that we are planning to go to the temple. Do they have anyone interested in coming with us? So they're setting up a team. Raymond's having these evil dreams of, these dreams of evil portents, and the church asks him if he has any divination skills. He doesn't. So they cast him divination and find it is being blocked by malevolent forces. And that is where we ended. Happy gaming.